I spent about 2 weeks in Japan, and here's how I spent my time between 3 different cities. I can't remember everything from this trip because it was about a year ago at this point, but I'll try my best to recall how it went. Once arriving in Japan, we got our pocket Wi-Fi and then went and got our JR pass. Then we took the train all the way up to Nara Park in Osaka. We had only about one day in Osaka before we moved on to Tokyo, and we wanted to see the deer while we were here, but we didn't get a chance to until later on into our trip because we were so sick from the flight. We were jet lagged, didn't eat enough, I did not have enough caffeine, and we were struggling. This is my partner's first time out of the US, so it was a whole new experience for him as well. Despite our struggles, we still wanted to make the most of our trip. So we spent our first day in Osaka just recovering. I love food, but I was so sick I couldn't eat, so if I can't eat, something's wrong. I remember buying some of the sandwiches from the 7-Eleven and sitting by the water waiting to eat with the little pigeons in front of us. Could not do it. I could not even take one bite. We did come back and end our trip in Osaka though, so I'll tell you more about our better experience later. Our time in Osaka was very short-lived, so we quickly just moved on to Tokyo. I was very confident that I could navigate the train system because I did it so well in Korea, but that was not the case. Thankfully, my partner was able to take my slack, or pick up my slack, you know what I mean. The hotel we had was in Akebonabashi, and it was very close to everything we wanted to see in Tokyo. It had a couple of restaurants, it wasn't too busy, and it was right next to a subway station, so it was very accessible. I also got to try Starbucks in Japan. This one was in the train station, but I went to many more after this. I learned that Japanese caramel macchiatos are top tier. So good, and I miss them. We also went to another American chain. We went to Wendy's. They had like this avocado teriyaki burger, so we got that. Their prices are a little bit more expensive than the US, but it's an experience nonetheless, so that's what we got. And it was so good. I think we went back maybe 3 times total. It was right next to our hotel, so once you ordered your food, you could also go upstairs and sit. Before I talk about the heart of Tokyo and what that was like, I want to talk about the struggles I had, not just being sick, like other things. My bank locked my card and I had no money in Japan. If I was alone, I would have been stranded with no money. This is also the first time I had like a true language barrier because before this I went to Canada, I speak English, then I went to Korea, but I had been studying Korean for several years, so this is my first time running into that. At this point in our trip, it would have been really nice to stop and recover, but we couldn't really do that because we had a tattoo appointment we needed to make. It was a little bit of a struggle to find, but it was pretty close to the Shibuya Scramble crossing. So while my partner was getting his tattoo, I just walked the city. I was set on going to that Starbucks that overlooks the Scramble, and thankfully I got to do it. Anyways, back to Akebonabashi. Akebonabashi is a good little section to stay in if you want to be close to Tokyo, but not in the heart of everything where it's busy. We went back to Shibuya for several days in a row, so it was no hassle getting back and forth. Alright, back to Shibuya. I saw the Hachiko statue. It was so busy because everybody wanted to see it, so I didn't get a good picture of like me in front of it, but it didn't matter too much. I still just got a photo as we were walking by. And for reference, it is right next to the Shibuya Scramble crossing. There was a line in front of that statue because everybody wanted their photo in front of it. Alright, and so here's Shibuya Scramble crossing. It was really busy, there was so much diversity. It was really cool. I wanted to take photos. I'll let you just watch. Alright, now you're not allowed to make fun of me, but I went to McDonald's in Shibuya. Not that I particularly like McDonald's, but I just think it's cool to try the McDonald's and other Western chains in different countries. The verdict is I don't like it. It was not that good. McDonald's itself was interesting because you just walked into a little lobby, you got your food, and you walked upstairs to sit, so the sitting portion was very nice. But I did not want to go back after that. I tried it, I was done. Then after McDonald's, I went to this mall, and there were several layers. There was a lot of K-pop stuff. I love K-pop. So it was very entertaining seeing all the different K-pop setups, like the outfits they wore, the little pop-ups, and things like that. This one mall by itself had so much to do. Since it was so close to the Starbucks and the Shibuya Scramble crossing, I went here a couple times. I cannot remember the name of this mall, so I'll do some research and I'll put the name right here. So I ended up getting a tattoo in Tokyo as well. I made this design when I was in college and it was in a printmaking class, so there was time for a tattoo. I said, alright, I'll do it. I can't remember fully, but I think she got the tattoo done in a couple hours. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the gachas. I just took all the photos of the gacha places I took and put them in one section right here. They had full, like, little buildings filled with these gacha machines. And we spent a little bit too much money at these. Not as much as we did in the arcades, but still. Then one time when I was on the street in Shibuya, I looked over and just saw this. I had seen videos about it, but I never expected to just see it on the street. One food we had a lot of in Japan was takoyaki. There were lots of different kinds and options for us to try. And I think we had some every other day, maybe, pretty frequently. We were doing stuff every day. Tokyo has so much to offer, and I love the big city, so I could just walk down the streets, do whatever I wanted, go into this store, go into that store, get some coffee, whatever. I was enjoying walking and seeing all the buildings and all the people and everything going on. My partner was still really struggling at this point, and we thought we were going to have to go home. We were only a couple days into the trip, and nothing was working. While I didn't want him to suffer, I didn't want to go home either, but I knew that was probably the best thing to do. So while he was finishing up his tattoo, I walked miles and miles through Tokyo, doing everything I could, and spending a little bit more money than I should. Then thankfully, I think it was the next day, he started to feel better. I think the mix of first time traveling that far, and being in a foreign country, new food, new place, and lack of sleep, a whack schedule, plus getting like a half sleeve tattoo was not a good mix. So we spent a little bit more time in Akebonabashi and just stayed within the area, and things started to look up from there. And we made sure to eat plenty of sushi, as there was a good sushi place right next to our hotel. You see this burger? Do not get American food abroad. Don't do it. I will die on that hill. I won't say where it is, but it's next to our hotel in Akebonabashi, so if you're ever there, take my warning and just don't do it. I mentioned that Akebonabashi was a lot less busy, so here are some photos where you can see that. There's less traffic and just more chill. As much chill as you can be in a huge city. Next up was Harajuku. Those photo booths were atrocious. The filters they put on there to make you look cute do not work for me. It shrunk my head but left my body big, and as somebody that's like plus size, it was not a good look. But we still kept them and I had to hang it up. Harajuku is fairly busy, but that did not stop us from playing with figments. Thankfully, the Japanese locals didn't really care what we did. We weren't hurting anything.
You want some more, buddy?
No? I managed to find the rainbow grilled cheese thing that I had seen in videos.
Rainbow cheese.
So of course I had to get the aesthetic cheese pull video. And here's a sign of the Takashita Street. There are lots of things to do in Harajuku, and a lot of them revolved around food and shopping. But they also had a cat cafe. This is my first time ever going to one, and I always wanted to go. I love cats. Here's a price list if you wanted to know. But there were so many different kinds of cats, and they had the munchkin cats too. They were so cute. It was a very clean place, and from what I remember, the prices weren't too bad to get in. You could buy food to give the cats. Some of the cats didn't want to be petted too much, but others loved the attention. We were warned about this cat in particular. The lady said, be careful, he loves biting ice. And he did love it, and he ended up biting my partner's finger. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, oh, it's okay. The cat cafe also offered complimentary drinks, so you just get a cup and click a button, you got some drinks. Pretty great. After the cat cafe, I went on a search for the bathroom. And there aren't a ton of public bathrooms, so we had to ask somebody, say, hey, where's the bathroom? They said, all right, go to this mall. And we went, and there was a huge line. But while in the line, I looked over and there was a Stray Kids pop-up event. So, that's nice. If you like K-pop, there's plenty for you to do in Japan, too. Next, we went to Yoyogi Park. And this was definitely more on the naturey side of things we did in Japan. There's lots of architecture to see and pictures to take. I really enjoyed it. Here's a common video I took. On our way home one day, I finally found taiyaki. I love taiyaki, and I love red bean paste filled things. So when I saw this, I said, oh my gosh, we gotta go. Then one thing I really wanted to do was go to the Yayoi Kusama Museum, but they needed a reservation, so we couldn't go. So we ended up going to the Skytree. The Skytree is pretty interesting, and if you're in the area, definitely go. The line was a little bit long to get to the top, but nothing too unbearable. Here's some photos of us getting some, fried squid, I think. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible. It was a little bit too much of the fried aspect and not enough squid, in my opinion. Here's some photos from the top. Here's our view. There were lots of things to do inside of the Skytree, too. Besides just the view at the top, they had restaurants, they had shops, they had a Pokemon Center. So while my partner is looking at Pokemon stuff to buy and take home, I tried Tangulu and then look at the Kirby Cafe. I did not buy anything from there. It's a little bit expensive and I am not a big Kirby fan, so. They also had this exotic animal display. We took photos with the owls, but they had other animals there that probably should not have been there. Like, there's no way you can tell me there's enough room in that little building inside of a sky tree for a capybara. There's just no way. And that was the end of our time in Tokyo. We then went to Kyoto, and this is the Toji Tower, which is also the same tower my partner got a tattoo of. It was a very beautiful park, and there was some architecture, some water, some trees, lots of things to see. Including this cute little turtle that kept trying to get attention from us. There's lots of little wildlife and things like cranes, turtles, fish. And Kyoto is a lot different than Tokyo. Kyoto is more chill, more naturey, more, I want to say traditional maybe? But it was a lot more of a slow pace. But they did have an arcade and I went crazy. I used one of these floor toilets too for the first time. So I could say that I tried something new. Here's a picture of us in front of Toji Tower. I think we took photos of some guy and then he took these photos for us. And here's a picture of him in front of the tower that his tattoo is based off of. The artist did a really good job. Our hotel was pretty close to Toji, so we went back a couple times. They had a little gift shop where you could buy Toji themed things, so we did get some of those. And this photo right here was the background of my phone for the longest time. It was around the time that I took this photo that an old Japanese man approached us. He did not speak good English, but he really wanted to talk to us, so we tried to communicate. He was saying things like, "Your president, Biden. Do you know Hiroshima?" Hiroshima, like, "You know Hiroshima, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, we know Hiroshima." And he kept mentioning our president. So we're like, is he trying to say that he's mad the U.S. bombed Hiroshima or what? But then he was also talking about how much he loved the U.S. and how it was in his top, 3 favorite countries and how much he hates Japan. So we're like, oh, yeah. We had no idea what to think of that interaction until we got to our hotel later that night. And we see on the news that Biden is in Hiroshima right now. And everything clicked. So that's one of our crazy stories of traveling. One of the trips we took while we were in Kyoto was to Fushimi Inari. I took lots of photos of the Torii Gates and we were determined to walk all the way to the top of the mountain. It was fairly busy but not too terrible to where you couldn't get around comfortably. And while the start of the trek is more crowded, the farther up the mountain you go, the less people there are. I am not in shape by any means, so when I tell you it was hard getting up that mountain, it was hard. I think I had to stop twice and take a break because my face was so red, it was so hot, and I felt like I was going to pass out. But also, the farther up you go, the more people you see turning back. So when I saw in-shape people giving up and turning back, that gave me motivation to keep on going. And we made it to the top. All the way to the top. This photo right here is about the halfway point, so you can see there's still plenty of people, but by the time you get to the top, significantly less. I'm not sure how many miles up the mountain it is to get to the top, but it felt like a lot. Also on the way up the mountain, there's this little straight walking path before you went up more stairs. And there was cats. They were just sitting there waiting. And then on our way back down, we saw that somebody feeds them. They bring out food and water for them. So they're just little Fushimi Inari cats. It was so cute. Speaking of stairs, it's not just a straight path. It's stairs, and some of them are really steep. And that's what also made it more brutal. But look at this cat. He's just sleeping under the little statue. At the bottom of Fushimi Inari is this little market. This is a stand that we went to, and it looked pretty good. So we ordered some things. Except for when we bought it, she pulled out a propane torch and torched some things up, and it tasted like gas, so do not recommend. The rest of our time in Kyoto was spent exploring and also going to this big mall near our hotel. We went to the arcade, went shopping, ate at the food court, and things like that. It was a good time. After Fushimi Inari, we went back to Nara Park. I'm so glad we ended our trip in Osaka again, because if I would have missed the deer, I would have been so sad. These are the deer you see in videos where they bow at you for a cracker. And although we couldn't find the cracker at first, we did find the guy selling them, and the deers loved it. Here's a video. These deer were pretty impatient because they knew when people had crackers. If they saw them in your hand, they were tailing you for as long as they could. And if you ran out of crackers and they didn't know, they'd still chase you. So you'd have to show them your empty hands, and then they'd walk away. Here's some cute selfies we got with the deer. While they look cute in the photos, they can sometimes be a little bit mean. There's nothing to be afraid of, but sometimes if you don't give them the cracker fast enough, they'll bite you. One bit my belly, and I did not appreciate it. It didn't leave marks or anything, but it still was not fun. Here's the temple around where all the deer are. You can also buy souvenirs here, and you get deer-themed things, obviously. Osaka is a good mix between Tokyo and Kyoto. It's not super naturey, but it's also not a huge city, but there's still plenty of stuff to do. Don't get me wrong, it's still a city, and there's still like a lot of people, but it's not too crazy. This is just a random museum we saw on a walk one day and decided to go to. But most of our free time was spent at these arcades. They had so much cute stuff, anime things, plushies, candy, Pokemon cards even. And we spent so much money at these arcades. Our other main expense was food. Here's a conveyor sushi that we went to. This is just one of those things you have to do when you're in Japan. And then we went to some Japanese barbecue places. And they bring out all the raw meat, they light your grill, and then you cook it yourself and you eat it. Here's some more food we had. And then some sushi, of course. Their sushi is so good. Their sushi is very fresh and relatively cheap. And it's a lot more simple than American sushi. Like, there's not as many crazy flavors. It's more just like fish, rice. And this is a strip that was next to our hotel. They had food, shops, and just little things like that. But our main entertainment in Osaka, since it was like the last part of our trip, we just wanted to chill a little bit. We did all the big city things, the touristy things. We just wanted to rest. So we weren't in any rush to go do anything big. A lot of our time was spent playing with these pigeons in this little grassy area. Like I said before, the Japanese didn't really care. I didn't see any signs that said don't touch the pigeons. So we were touching the pigeons. So I'm going to tell you about the person that approached us while we were doing this. We were minding our own business playing with these pigeons, and some guy came up to us and he had a blanket with him and just like some random thing. And he was telling us how he did this and that he has no place to stay that night. We're like, oh, okay. So he's like in a roundabout way trying to ask us for money and trying to ask us where we're going. We're like, mm-mm. Because this was just some random British guy. If you can afford to get to this country, it is not my problem if you blew all your money at the theme park. And he's like, oh, I hope somebody will notice me. He then proceeds to pull out a blanket and lay on the grass. So it really killed the mood, and we just left and went home. You see the guy in the background of this photo? I can't remember if it was him or not, but there was a Japanese man that was watching us and like smiling and laughing, so we gave him some bread too, and he was also feeding the pigeons. Takoyaki sculpture. And there's a little arcade place. I don't usually play arcade games like this, but I was so good, and I nearly won. I just kept winning and winning and winning and winning. Okay, I lied. We also went to Osaka Castle. I forgot about that. So here's pictures from that. It was a very beautiful castle. A little bit of a long walk from our hotel, but it was worth it. When you go do things like this outside of the main city, there's a lot of beautiful scenery. But like if you turned around from where we took this photo, it was parking lots, Osaka Castle, and lots of people. Sheesh, look at this photo. Really good. There's also other little buildings like this that you could see besides the main Osaka Castle, so there's more than just that to see there. Here's a statue we saw. We ended up trying to go into this mall, and it had a lot of high-end stores, which we didn't know at the time, but we were already in, so we're just looking around, and there's a little art gallery in there. It was very beautiful. I love art like this. So yeah, we just looked around and left. And then one of my favorite parts about Osaka was the karaoke. When I was in Korea, I went karaokeing all the time. So I was so excited to do it again in Japan. And so yeah, the rest of my time in Japan was karaokeing, eating, and then we went home. I'm very thankful that we could finish our trip despite the sickness and hardships that we faced. My next video is going to be about Korea, so watch out for that.